identify the medicinal properties of a dandelion, and I can identify things I can do with a dandelion. So why don't you come on in closer? Dandelions are actually an anti-inflammatory and an antiviral plant, which means that it helps kill viruses, and it actually helps reduce inflammation or swelling, which is really, really cool. Something to note is that I'm not a doctor, I'm an herbalist, so if you're going to use dandelion for any sort of medicinal value, please talk to your doctor first. So come closer, I want to show you the parts of a dandelion. Dandelions are bright yellow. You can see lots of little leaves. I think most people can identify them in their yard or neighborhoods. This is the head of the flower. This part down here, it's actually called the bracts. Here's the stem, and this part is actually a leaf of a dandelion. It looks kind of toothy and sharp. So we are going to be practicing harvesting some dandelions so we can actually do some cool things with them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop off the head of a dandelion, and we're going to use this to make oil and tea. And I'm going to take some greens or leaves of the dandelion and we're going to fry them up for lunch. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look around my yard and I'm going to harvest more dandelion leaves and dandelion heads, and then I'll meet you back inside so I can show you what to do with them. Hi Discovery, welcome back, and now we're in my kitchen. I just want to remind you our targets are I can identify the parts of a dandelion, which we already did. I can identify the medicinal properties of a dandelion, which is an anti-inflammatory, nutritive, an antiviral, and I can identify things I can do with a dandelion. And that third target is the one we're going to hit right now. So we're going to be doing three things. We're going to be making a dandelion infused oil that we can use to make a hand salve or a lotion or soap. Then we're going to make a dandelion tea, which we can drink. And then I'm going to be frying up some dandelions for my lunch. So you know that if you don't know what else to do with a dandelion, they always look pretty in a vase for your mom. But if you feel like doing something a little fancier, come on over here. We are going to make a dandelion oil. And when you make an oil, it's not something that you eat. So it's important to know something about the properties of water and things when you're doing herbal medicine. And one of the things that's true is that if you have water and you mix it with oil, bacteria can grow in it. So I'm actually not going to wash my dandelion heads yet. I'm going to wash it before I make a tea because we're going to be drinking the tea, so we want to make sure it's clean. But when we're just making an oil, I'm just going to pop a little bit in a jar. That looks about right. Got my dandelion heads in there. And I'm going to use an almond oil. You can use lots of different oils to make medicinal oil. You can use vegetable oil, you could use coconut oil, you could use olive oil. I like almond oil because it's got kind of a nice sweet scent and it has a really nice texture. So I'm going to take my almond oil and I'm just going to pour it right over my dandelion heads. Close that up so I don't spill because I'm clumsy, so I spill. And I've got oil that's filled up about halfway with my dandelion heads there as well. I'm going to take it and I'm just going to do a little shake. Ooh, it's already so pretty. And I'm going to be putting this in the sun for 2 to 3 weeks. And what's going to happen is all those properties of the dandelion, the anti-inflammatory and such, it's going to seep into the oil. So after 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to strain out the dandelion heads and just leave the oil left. And I'll be using that oil to make a hand salve or a lotion, which if I have like a swollen ankle or something would feel really, really nice. Something else that I like to do when I'm making oils and things is I like to label it with the date and what it is. Dandelion is easy to see, but there are other plants that sometimes it's more difficult to tell. So always label your jars. So there's our oil. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a dandelion tea. So I'm going to turn my water on. I'm going to get that going really hot. There's a couple different ways you can make tea. You can pour boiling water over the plant, or you can put regular tap water in the plant if you don't have access to boiling water, and you can just leave it in the sun and make like a sun tea, which is what I did yesterday, and I'll show you that in a minute. So when you make a tea, it's always really important to wash your plants. You don't want to be ingesting dirt and bugs and other things. So I like to clean my plants really, really well before I make my tea. Just give it a little toss there. that's also important to note about tea. If you're using dried plant, like the plants that come inside of a tea bag, you're going to use a lot less than if you use a fresh plant, because dried plants are just a lot more concentrated than fresh plants. So I'm going to take my dandelion heads that we harvested from the yard, and I'm going to pop them right in my jar. And I think to make this tea kind of a double whammy, I'm also going to be putting some of the dandelion greens in there that we harvested. Those were the leaves, those toothy leaves. So I'm going to give those a wash as well. I'm going to save some for lunch. I'm going to use the rest of them in my tea. So Fred, something else that's also important to know. Something else that's important to note is that you need to be careful about where you're getting your plants from. If you use chemicals on your lawn, like pesticides or something to try to kill bugs or something, the plants that you harvest may not be safe to eat. So I really recommend washing things well and just understanding where you're getting your plants from. In my lawn, we don't put any pesticides or anything on the grass, so I know that these are safe to be eating. So I've got my oil here. And while that water is boiling up, I want to show you some of the tea that I made yesterday. So this is a tea of dandelion that I made in advance so I could show you how we can strain it off. But you can also see the color of it and how that looks a day later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, this is just so simple. So you've got your tea, which we're going to make in a second. You want to look inside. They do look a little bit wilted because it's been overnight, and I left this out in the sun. Ooh. It smells really earthy and beautiful. So I have a cup here, and I'm going to strain my tea right with a little strainer that I got at Walmart. You can also use cheesecloth, or even if you don't have anything, you can just hold your hand over it. You just might get a little leaves or something in there. And I'm going to pour my tea right in there. You can see a little bit of the dandelion popped on top of my strainer. Pop that back in. And I have a cup of tea. I can warm it up or I could put it over ice. I always like to put honey and lemon in my tea when I drink it. I think it makes it taste a little bit better, but dandelion tea does tend to be a little bit bitter, so you might even want to water it down if you've let it steep too long. It's very sweet. Dandelion has like a sweetness to it that's really delicious. So I'm going to warm that up in just a minute. This looks good. Here we go. I've got hot water here, and I'm just going to pour it right over my leaves. Gosh, that's pretty. I really like the way that looks. And so you can see how that looks in the water, and in just a minute, if I do a little shake, you're going to see that the water even turns a little bit yellow on the bottom. Yep. So I'm going to let that steep for a few hours. I could put it on my porch and leave it overnight again if I wanted, but I'm looking forward to drinking this before bed tonight. It's really, really beautiful. All right, so I've got a cup of tea that I made yesterday. You can see the difference between when it's first made and when you let it sit for a while. Which I'll enjoy later. I've got my oil, which is right here. And the last thing I'm going to teach you how to do with dandelions today is actually make a little stir fry. We're going to fry up some dandelion greens. And so dandelion greens, I've already washed these over here, I mentioned before, have a ton of nutrients in it, and they have a very special flavor. So if you haven't tried it, give it a try. You can mix these greens right up with salad if you didn't want to cook them, or another way that I like to eat them is to kind of fry them up. So I'm going to take some olive oil. You can use vegetable oil or anything. Put about a tablespoon in there. And I'm going to use some garlic. I really love garlic. I mix it with a lot of the things that I cook. You can leave it out if you don't like it. I don't know, a little half teaspoon there, a teaspoon. And I'm going to warm that up. So as that's cooking up, Just take again another look at what a dandelion leaf looks like. Make sure you're eating the right leaf and you're picking the right leaf. If you've harvested the head right along with the greens, it's most likely that you have harvested the correct plant, but sometimes you got to be careful and not mix other things in there. Ooh, and I can see my garlic sizzling. So I'm going to take my leaves, I'm just going to pop them right over my garlic. And anytime you cook with greens, you're going to notice that they start to wilt pretty quick. They get small really, really quick. So if you cook with spinach or kale or anything else, you're going to notice it shrink up. Gosh, what a wonderful thing right from your yard, right? Who knew? I'm so grateful for plants. They give us so much. So much to be grateful for. All right. So that's about as done as I like them. Sometimes I know folks like to cook them a little bit more or a little bit less. It's kind of your preference. Yum. Okay. Here we go. Maybe I should make some eggs or something to go with it, but for now, I'm just going to take a nice bite of this so you can see. It really is delicious. And this is right from my front yard this morning. It's just such a unique flavor. If you haven't given this a try, just try it once. And then you can decide if you like it or if you think I'm nuts. Okay. Thank you so much, Discovery, for joining me in my kitchen as I taught you what you can do with a dandelion. Our targets for this video were I can identify the parts of a dandelion, I can identify things you can do with a dandelion, and I can identify the medicinal properties of a dandelion. So when a dandelion is also at the end of its life, it looks a little bit like this, which you may have seen before. Often when I was a kid, we used to blow these and make wishes, and those are all little dandelion seeds. So I'm going to blow mine and make a wish, and my wish, Discovery, is to be back in school with you.